All right. And tell me if I'm not loud enough on the call, if you can't hear me, and then I will try to speak closer to the computer or just louder. But yeah, so welcome to this learning hour about repurposing content. It won't be rocket science. I don't think you will learn so much from it, but the idea is really to get like ideas on how we can be better at diversifying the way we produce content for our customers and also for ourselves. Because these are things that we all think about, but we might fail to complete in the end, because usually it's time, but it could also be a matter of like prioritizing the right things in a way. So this is what we will be talking about, the benefits of repurposing content, which content can you repurpose, and that's a lot. And then we'll focus on a few things that realistically we at Advance B2B can repurpose again for Advance B2B, but also, and most importantly, for our customers. And then I will have like a closing slide on content distribution, but that will be like a very, very quick thought. So why repurpose content? I have like 5 extremely good reasons to do this. So first, this is the example of like writing a blog post. There are a lot of steps, and writing a blog post takes quite some time. The writing is not even the most time-consuming task, I would say, during the overall process, but really like the research and what we should do as well, which we don't necessarily do a lot, like the promotion part should also take like a lot of time. But anyways, like the idea here is that there is a lot of things that we need to do when working on a piece of content, and for instance, a blog post. I found this quote, which I didn't know that quote, but I really liked it in the end. You don't have to create content day in and day out. You just have to work on getting the content you already have in the hands of more people. So yeah, and something that we do often, again, for ourselves and for customers, is often like to produce a lot of pieces of content, but then say that, and we'll talk about this in a second, but if our audience doesn't necessarily like to read blog posts, then there is a lot of them that we can't really talk to because they don't read blog posts. But anyways, back to saving time. When repurposing content, there are a lot of steps. I hope you appreciate the effects, and there is more coming. There are a lot of steps that you don't need to reproduce when repurposing content, because you've already done the hard part, which is like finding the topic, researching the topic, just producing the whole thing. What you need to do in the end is just like repurposing that piece of content and turning it into a different format. But I would say that the heavy part is already done, and even maybe the promotion part you've already done, because you already have a promotion plan when you have that first piece of content ready. And do interrupt if you have questions, remarks, or experiences to share. Second benefit would be like to get an SEO boost. And that's not just, for instance, like if you create a blog post and then turn it into a video that you put on YouTube, or I don't know, a bunch of social posts or infographics, something that you share on social media, you won't directly get an SEO boost, but then the momentum that you create around that content. And go ahead. I don't know if it's a message or hand raised.
It's just a comment. This waiting for traffic one is really funny. It is quite true.
I mean, it is true. Like oftentimes we publish something and then you just wait, especially if, and we have, like it's not rare that we get to work with companies that have like very little traction when it comes to ranking organically. So if we don't do anything but to publish a blog post or any other content, there will be a lot of waiting, and it's like, day 90, you're still waiting in a way. So if you do repurpose that content and multiply the touch points with the brand, you will most likely get more traffic, and that should result in you getting like more points from Google in a way, and more relevant traffic as well, because relevant people will consume different formats of your content, and they will consume the format that is relevant to them. So in the end, you will increase your chances to appear on their radar. And that's something that I had asked you guys, I don't know, like a month and a half ago. And I know it was difficult to only pick one format, like what is your go-to learning format? And you could only pick one. And yeah, there were like 52 messages in that thread because we're arguing about how many can you pick. But what this shows is that clearly we don't consume content the same way. And what's interesting here is that blogs was an option, and yeah, there were about like 20 plus votes. And blogs only received 1 vote. And the fun thing is that most of the content that we produce is blogs. So there is clearly something that we need to rethink here because, like for instance, video content appeared as the top content, and I also voted this one because I'm a sucker for video content in a way. But reality is that not everyone reads blogs when this is most of what we do. So we should try to repurpose those blog posts. And yeah, ask around if you are not convinced yet. But I would say that even though this is only like 20 people answering, I think it shows an interesting picture. Repetition to strengthen your messages. So there is this thing that we probably all heard somewhere, like people need to hear a message 7 times before they buy something. People need to hear a message 7 times. Not going to do that 7 times. But that's actually an urban legend. However, it doesn't mean that you should not try to repeat your messages to get them in the head of your audience. So yeah, repurposing content means that you get ways to share the information that you want to convey in different formats. So that gives you a chance to do it in a clearer manner. You can break it down, for instance, if you have this super long blog post, and for instance, we have those super long blog posts that not everyone will want to read, but if we break it down into short formats, I don't know, it could be like minute videos to explain marketing concept or something, I don't know. Then that could most likely help us to reach new audiences. Repeat your messages at regular intervals. So that also goes with distribution plans, which is something that in general, I would say we could maybe be a bit better at. And yeah, just repetition creates opportunities also for your audience to get more involved with you in a way and get the conversation going, especially if you share highly engaging content on social media. And finally, gain authority. But yeah, that's pretty much like a result of the 4 previous points, because the more quality pieces you publish in multiple locations, the more you will be able to establish your authority as, let's say, a thought leader on the market. And that should give you that legitimacy that you need to convince your audience to work with you. So which content, or yeah, what type of content can you repurpose? This is a non-exhaustive sandbox or list, and I'm sure that you could probably multiply this by 5 or 10 if you think long enough, but yeah, that's a lot of things. You can create a lot of things. You can like repurpose a lot of things. And I really like this idea that I stole from Miska yesterday. If you have, for instance, old guides that are not performing anymore and that no one reads because they're, I don't know, they're a bit outdated, you can just like spend a few hours to like update the content and maybe turn those into pillar content, if obviously relevant for your audience. But yeah, so there are a lot of things you can repurpose, and the idea is not to go over all of those because we don't have time. So yeah, with finite resources come choices. So this is what I want to narrow it down to today. So video, audio, infographics, social media, and email courses. Why not? So I think a good place to start is obviously blogs. Again, maybe our blog or customer's blog. Why the blog? Because on the blog you can find a lot of evergreen content, and usually, I mean, that's, let's say, like a great part of what blogs are made of lately. And evergreen means timeless, and hopefully also high quality, which is not always the case, but this is the type of content that you should target, obviously, when trying to repurpose. So where to start? Well, do challenge me on this, of course, but I would say that the top performing and the most relevant posts are a good way to start, because it means that your audience is interested in this. Yeah, I just created that meme. Like, I think we need to write, it's not about what you think, it's about what the data says. So we should check the data. And the first thing I would say is to run a content audit to identify those top performing pieces that we, or the pieces that have the most potential. So yeah, I mean, you've already seen those things, but this is just a screenshot of an example of an audit that we could run, for instance, for Advance B2B. And then we're going to priority score based on the content performance and the indicators that we deem relevant. Don't remember which I selected for this example, but irrelevant. But when looking at how the content is performing and based on what you're trying to achieve, you can work on that priority score and do a simple math addition and division. So let's start. Video content. Well, why turn our content into video? Well, first it puts, if you at least, when I say video, I don't mean infographic videos, because those are obviously very time consuming and very expensive. When I say video, I mean something that we just someone films themselves and chat for a few minutes. So it puts a face on a brand and a content, because in the end, people like to interact with people and not necessarily with brands. And we see it quite often with LinkedIn. When we post with our own channel, for instance, with Advance B2B, we get very little likes, except for our own. But then when we publish ourselves on LinkedIn, then we get more traction from outsiders in a way. Video obviously is very entertaining for the viewer if done correctly, obviously. And it's quite easy to consume, because a blog post you have to read for sure, because, I mean, if you don't have the blog in front of you, you can really read it. But a video, you can at least listen, or yeah, you can just watch without being too busy in a way. And what types of video then can we easily create? Then I thought about teaser video and recap videos. And when I say teaser, is like just, for instance, you write this super big blog post, you can have this teaser video presenting like, hey, this blog post is about this, go and read it. This is why you should read it. And recap videos, well, this is maybe a bit more elaborate videos, but and a bit longer than the teaser. But the idea here is like to sum up the key points of the piece of content, so that when you watch that video, you get enough and you don't need to read the blog post. You have enough to go forward maybe in the funnel, or yeah, just you don't need to consume any other content. You've already done that. So how? Well, as I said, could be about summarizing why anyone should either head to your website to learn more, or why should anyone continue watching that video in a way if it's like a 4 or 5 minutes video instead of reading a 20 minutes long blog post, which, for instance, we have a lot on our blog. And very important thing, when you do this, obviously, I guess, when you work on the pitch of the video, you will write it down. But then when you start saying it out loud, it might sound funny. And the challenge here is really to turn the written language into spoken language. Because if you don't sound natural and at ease, obviously, I mean, you or anyone else appearing on the screen doing this, no one's going to watch it, because if the person isn't at ease, it's not going to be fun to watch. Then I also linked a few tools that we can use. And yeah, again, it's not rocket science. And for instance, iMovie does a lot of things, and it's free on Mac. There are some other tools that we can use, or that our customers can use if they want to invest a little more. But again, it's relatively inexpensive, especially if our customers, or if we do it ourselves. But of course, we could also outsource such services to work with people who actually know what they're doing. So these are do's and don'ts of, for instance, if you want to record a teaser video, and actually have a few examples of this. So obviously avoid noisy environments, because as you watch the video, if the sound is of a poor quality, then no one's going to watch it. No one's going to be convinced by it. Also, simple stuff. Light is very important. We don't need to have professional equipment. It just needs to be, don't sit in your garage or something. Just make sure that you have enough light on your face. No script is also, at least like, I know I can't work without a script. Maybe some people can wing it, but I would say don't wing it, prep it. And also don't move around the camera, because as you do different cuts, then it might look odd in the end if you just keep moving or the camera keeps moving. Instead, calm environment. So office or home, obviously, if both are calm. Proper light, that's, just the opposite of what I said, basically. Spoken language, well, you just need to own what you're saying. If it doesn't sound like you, then, just say it differently until it sounds like you. And the challenge here, the same with video and audio content, and we'll go over that in a bit, but the challenge obviously is to be at ease with it. So as long as you don't feel at ease, just keep recording it, keep trying, and then as soon as you feel at ease, then maybe you can be serious about recording something. And again, we can try ourselves, but we can also outsource it. But I think this is still good to know, especially, for instance, if we outsource it, we need to be able to feel like, okay, is this high quality? That's not right. So yeah, so this is just an example of the light. So this is me saying hello. Same camera, so that was like the front camera of my iPhone, so iPhone 11. So like it's not a bad camera, of course, but same device, different location in my apartment. One that has like a proper light in front of the window, and the other one in between rooms in the apartment. And it just like looks a lot grayer and not really fun to watch. And you can of course access this from the presentation, but I created like a little teaser video to prove my point, which we already shared on LinkedIn. And if we look at, so this is the first post that we shared like 4 months ago to share that post, and it was very successful, as you can see. And then another one that we shared with the video. Of course, there are also like our own likes, but still like people interacted with it. And if we look at performance, well, numbers don't lie. Sorry. We got very little impressions, no interaction almost with the still image, and the video allowed us to reach a lot more people. So yeah, that's just like, again, it's a one-time example, but I like to think that this shows that maybe we should maybe try to repurpose what we do a bit more when sharing it, for instance.
How can you learn to do those videos? You do those yourself.
Just like, I'm using this platform called Skillshare, and I think it's relatively inexpensive. It's like, I think 90 euros a year or something.
Yeah.
And it's a great place it's like an online course platform, and it's a great place to learn how to use like Photoshop, all the Adobe suite in a way. Like they have also like a lot of like good teachers to open up on like how to like explore email marketing, how to be better at writing and stuff like that. So yeah, I would really recommend, if anyone's interested in this, I would highly recommend looking at Skillshare. And I actually, recorded a Photoshop session from Skillshare. So not to share outside of like Advance B2B in a way, because obviously someone worked their ass off to produce that video and it's on the platform to pay. But just so that it's like this 101 how to use Photoshop. And if you guys watching or here in the room like the format of the Skillshare thingy, then I can definitely record more of those sessions on After Effects, for instance, so that everyone can at least get like a beginner level to produce those videos. But it's fairly easy. I mean, I'm not like, I wouldn't be able to, add a lightsaber or anything. I don't know how to do this. This is like fairly easy effects, which, this is enough for what we have to do in a way.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly like the one enough. Like it doesn't have to be like super polished or
Yeah.
anything. But I think it's like good enough.
Yeah. I mean, it just needs to be like, it shouldn't be, as I said earlier, like as long as it's not recorded in a garage, it's fine. It just needs to look professional, and then as long as it does. And we have also Helmi, obviously, to make sure that what we do is quite professional looking. But yeah, that's.
I think like quite often it's only about like few cuts and edits. Like
yeah, that's just like what. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like very relatively easy, but like the difference is quite big.
Yeah, and about the cuts, and that's a perfect segue. And my next point on video is about to repurpose. It's about repurposing webinars into maybe shorter videos. And why? Because webinars are live events that are, let's say, most valuable when attending live, because you can interact with the person and everything. So that's fun. And another reason is that 30 days after you put your recording up for grabs, while the viewership drastically drops because you're not promoting it anymore and everything. But most importantly, watching a recorded webinar, let's say an hour long, can be very long, because when you attend the live meeting, your brain knows that the sound and video won't be like perfect. But when you watch something pre-recorded, it's very long to watch something if the sound is not great, if I don't know, if someone's zipper keeps touching the mic or something. It can be very long. So it's difficult to watch recordings. So don't hate me, Vipke, if you're watching the recording. But taking an example of one of our latest webinars about the role of brand in B2B SaaS growth. So this is an hour-long webinar. And the content was good. I mean, I was there live, and I haven't watched the recording, but anyways, I was there live. But the content is good, but there are a few problems. Most of us are not trained entertainers. So again, when you attend live, you can interact with the person and it's fun. But when you're watching the recording, I don't know, it's just like it can be very long to watch it all without interacting with the person. And because we're not trained entertainers, it's hard to entertain people for an hour when they're watching a recording. And in fine, what the data shows as well is that this might be a good webinar, the content might be good, but in the end, we're working our asses off and we have very little views. Almost in May, so 4+ months and 100 views only. And a view doesn't mean that someone watched it all. It could be like I watched it for 20 seconds, that counts as a view. So do what I say, not what I do, or do what we say, not what we do. But this is something that I thought we could try. So this video, for instance, is already broken down into chapters. So why not cut this video into short videos so that it's easier to consume and straight to the point. We could maybe turn those into blogs if we don't have those yet, or update our blogs, obviously, with whatever content or examples, for instance, Vipke came up with. Or another idea also, and that was a segue that you made, like about the cuts. If we find that watching this recording, for instance, might be a bit long, then we could maybe also cut this webinar into a, 5 minutes highlights video. What should you absolutely remember from this webinar instead of watching the 59 minutes? When you watch this 5 minutes highlight video, you should be up to speed with everything. So don't hesitate again if you have questions. Are we okay on time? Yes, okay. That was the bigger section, so the rest should be all right. Audio content, well, it's pretty much the same idea here. People consume content in different ways. It's about obviously increasing the visibility around our brand or our customer's brand. And beauty of podcasts or audio content is that we can talk to people when they are on the move. They don't need to be sitting behind a screen. In general, everyone's busy. and so are our customers, and yeah, so are we anyways. So it's a good way to talk to a busy audience. And how to do this? Well, it's pretty much the same as for videos. Turn written language into spoken language, and I have a good example of that just after. Just use a good microphones, because especially if you don't have video to look at, if the sound is not good, no one's going to listen to your thing. And yeah, just listed a few standard editing tools with also like Adobe Audition, like to polish content, polish the audio without deteriorating it. But GarageBand and Audacity can also be good places to start when it comes to audio content. And again, this is something we can outsource as well, but still good to know about those. So yeah, when I said written into spoken, so this is just like an extract from one of our blog posts about content marketing. Yeah, you can see that the reading time, for instance, here is like 38 seconds, so fine, you read the blog. But then speaking time would be almost a minute. So if we would turn our written content into audio content, we should definitely shorten it, or at least like edit the text so that it sounds like it's okay to speak that way, but also shorten it so that yeah, we retain the audience without having them leaving halfway through. So yeah, same story as before with a few more pieces of advice. So obviously, yeah, this is something I actually I did this benchmark like almost 2 years ago about like microphones. I had done this like LinkedIn post where I shared like a few experiments about like how different microphones can sound, but the idea is don't use wireless microphones because they sound like crap. Avoid empty rooms with echo. That goes without saying. An important thing is no coffee, which is what I'm doing now, simply because coffee is drying your mouth, and when you speak, then you make those like, which are very disgusting when you hear a recorded podcast or something. And instead, you should drink apple juice, because apple juice makes sure, like, it just, I don't know, it works. It erases those sounds in a way. But yeah, very important thing here. The big lesson I would say is like take your time if you are to try something like this, and do as many takes as necessary until you sound confident and therefore convincing for the audience. And one thing as well that, again, do challenge me on this. Maybe this is something that you appreciate as a consumer, but I believe that we should avoid using like automated robot tools to turn our blog posts and text content into audio, because they don't sound good. It don't sound natural, and it really feels also like it would make us sound a bit lazy as well. Like, why would we use the tool and not do it ourselves? At least I'm not convinced by this. A few notes on infographics. Again, this is something that we can outsource, but same story. It's good to remind ourselves about the possibility behind those. So images, obviously, or visuals are great to summarize complex information. They're pretty good to turn also like boring stuff into easy to digest content. It's pretty easy also to share on social media. People like to click on such things. They don't necessarily read the whole thing, but if it looks good, they will interact with it. And it's also like an interesting SEO best practice, because not everyone will do this, but people sharing your infographic might actually link back to your website. So that's a good way to generate backlinks. Well, how? Well, we are lucky to have creatives, so we can just create detailed briefs for our creatives. And again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel because usually either we or our customers have templates, so we can just look at what they have and work from that to make the process as easy as possible in a way. And yeah, there are a few tools, again, that we can use ourselves, but most of the time, creatives are here for that to help us. Yeah, this is just an example of infographics that we can find online. So there are the complex kind that tell a big story, and it can be sometimes a bit difficult to follow, actually. It might look interesting, but what is the big story? Relatively simple like lists that are also like quite easy to make with tools like Canva and stuff. And like this is an example, like something that I did myself. I didn't want to bother anyone with this, but anyways, took me about like 30 minutes, which is probably a lot of time for Helmi, for instance. But anyways, the idea here is that we have a complex message or something that's conveyed very fast instead of let's say a minute speaking time. So we can just use an infographic to say that 41% of B2B marketers say they have a documented content marketing strategy. And then, yeah, we can just like promote our blog post and explain why, obviously, it is important to have one and how to do it. But yeah, that fits into the how to tell a story using different formats. Quickly about social media. Well, the thing is, yeah, if you don't share your content or if we don't share our own stuff, no one will. That's usually how it goes. So that's something that we do at Advance B2B. I know it's something that I'm trying also like to get our customers to do, but it's not always easy because time, it's always time and resources, obviously. But we should convince everyone we're working with that we should definitely share automatically or systematically all the content that we produce on social channels, adapt our tone of voice per channel, obviously, repost what we, or it's not because we publish a new piece of content that we only have to promote it once. We should definitely repost or, let's say, just schedule messages ahead of time to talk about that content so that it doesn't fall into the limbs of social media. Evergreen social media platforms. So those are, those are platforms that repost, like you feed, I don't know. For instance, I'm using Social B, or at least I was using Social B. So you feed like, I don't know, 100 posts to Social B or SmartQ or Meet Edgar. And then you define specific times during the week at which you want the platform to post, and it will recycle your messages so that you are never like mute on social media in a way. Of course, when you do this, you need to have like evergreen messages, because if you say Merry Christmas in May, it may sound a bit funny. And yeah, another thing, of course, is something that we're trying to do also here at Advance B2B is to encourage like everyone in a company to share the content, because in the end, we are the best ambassadors of our own companies. Yeah, so obviously this is how we do it. And we have those. This is something that I tried also like to put together with a few customers, like just to create those like this equivalent of our social swipes, so that it's easier for our customers' colleagues to also share the content and spread the word. It's not always done because obviously it's always difficult to involve everyone, but I believe that it's a super good tool to start doing this, or to have our customers do this at least. And yeah, another point that I wanted to mention is email course. Well, I mean, I assume that you guys know what an email course is, but yeah, it's a series of lessons delivered via email over a short period of time. And the reason why we could do email courses is to educate the audience on core topics, grow our authority or our customers' authority, and obviously generate leads, because you cannot send email without an email. And this is an example of something I'm working on for ourselves. So again, based on that content marketing strategy or strategic content blog post that we have on our own blog, I was thinking it could be interesting to push an email course about content marketing on this blog post. And the idea would be like how to get started with content or with strategic content in 5 days. And then like day 1, you would receive an email like, hey, how to run a content audit. Day 2, you got a strategy, then what? Day 3, get more out of your content. Day 4, don't sit around, distribute your content. Day 5, nothing's set in stone. Always question what you do. Yeah, so that's something that's cooking, and I hope would be ready sooner than later. But yeah, that's just something that maybe we could try to do a bit more sometimes as well with our customers. Obviously, it's not always relevant based on who their audience is. But for instance, for ourselves, it could be because we are talking to marketers and we are quite email heavy people. And a final thought on distribution. So as our friend Shaya says here, do it, because as I said like a few slides back, no one will do it for you. So yeah, just do it. And I would say the right promotion plan is the one that you actually use, you actually follow. And we have this in place for ourselves, but it's not always the case for our customers. I would say like the most important thing is to create a routine, or at least some sort of a routine, make sure that we do the same things over and over again, stick it for a while, because if we don't stick to it, then it's going to be difficult to measure. But yeah, create that routine, measure the performance, and optimize based on this. And I know that it's easier said than done, because again, promotion takes a lot of time, and yeah, time is not always easy to find. But I think that's a big challenge that we need to overcome in general as marketers. Is creating content is very important, but then if we don't spend time distributing it, organically speaking at least, because of course we can unleash like paid campaigns, which is needed. But if we don't promote it organically, then as soon as we cut the paid campaigns, then our message dies as well. But yeah, so there is this content promotion template that I linked here. And so I put together like some organic promotion material that you can simply duplicate for each piece of content you produce, or just like work within the document. And also Monica helped me to create this like paid acquisition also material, so that whenever you have campaigns, you can just like use that document instead of having like a lot of documents all over the place for different types of campaigns and contents. But also I'm thinking that when working with our customers, centralizing everything, I think gives more importance to the distribution, because it's also easier to consume. And one thing that I also included in there, and that's might be stupid, but I think it's quite important, depending on who you're talking to, where is your audience located? For instance, I mean, it's quite small, but I guess you can see still. I have this calendar, and for instance, we as Advance B2B talk to people sometimes in the US, but sometimes we'll be publishing things at 9 o'clock in the morning. But on the West Coast, it will be 2 a.m. So we're not really talking to anyone there. So if some of our customers have an international audience, I think it's important to know what time it is when we talk to those people, instead of what time it is in Helsinki, for instance. But yeah, so feel free to duplicate this and leave remarks, comments, improve the document as well if you see fit. But I think it's a good tool. Of course, a tool is only as good as what we do from it, but yeah, if you have remarks, please share them. That's it. You guys have questions, remarks? Are you still there?
Yes, we're here.
Well, if there is no or not more questions, I'll just show that that's my favorite slide. But yeah, that is it.
I think this was super good. Still too often we like do like blog posts and then let it be like not only the promotion but all the repurposing and so.
Yeah, but and that's, I mean, blog post is like, I mean, I was about to say it's like the easiest thing, but no, it's not easy to write a blog post, but it's something that we, like our customers also, like they are very familiar with blog posts and they know that it can work. But in 2022 is just like, we need to do more than this. We need to.
And it's also like more, but then at the same time, kind of less. Like
exactly.
There's new content to do, which is always like the hardest part.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think it's also kind of wise, but effective also. I think this was super good.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I really like different formats that we can use for the content, especially the video. I think that was interesting because that's also something that I'm really into myself, so it's close to home for me.
Yeah, I was actually exactly thinking that you could like edit those yourself, even though you are not like a content person, but that's like, that doesn't really matter. Like as long as you have the experience or expertise to do those videos, so you could like really well do that as well.
Because if you think about it, like all of us in this room and in this call, we all consume video almost probably every day. And yet what we create the most is written content. When what we consume the most, at least what I consume the most likely is video content in general.
I also really like the webinar part, because that's like, those webinars, like no one ever watches the recordings, like full recordings, or really seldom, so that would be super good to
And it,
put those in pieces and then in LinkedIn and so on.
and it might not work, but I think it's worth trying because, yeah. But yeah, did someone raise their hand?
I did. It's me. Just to suggest something on the video front, that I actually have it in my kind of learning plan this year to mess around with some of the no-code tools, like our former customer Wibbits, which allows you to produce videos with limited technical expertise, which aren't necessarily like person talking to a camera style videos. There are ways of presenting information in interesting and engaging ways. So there are options out there that will allow us to produce something. It might not, it definitely wouldn't be as good as if we got someone like Helmi or a video expert on board, but it's a way to do something relatively quickly that might be effective and which our customers may appreciate. So it's just worth bearing in mind there are tools and apps out there that can do all kinds of funky things.
Yeah, and in those, like you can also use like, usually it's like images or videos in the background and like text on top. And yeah, like as you said, like there is Wibbits. I think there is also a tool called Lumen 5, I think, and they're relatively inexpensive. And yeah, I mean, there's, I think, a lot to explore when it comes to that. So that's a very good point. But if there are no more questions or remarks, well, first I will stop the recording. No, doesn't. Oh, okay.